The Chicago Bulls quietly and privately think that Lonzo Ball's career is over. While a lot of Bulls fans have already come to that realization, we're going to talk about that, plus an article that came out that the Lakers still think that Lonzo Ball's injury is due to the original Big Baller brand shoes he was wearing. We're going to talk about that, plus we're going to dive into why it's important that the Chicago Bulls have an injury-free season as much as possible this upcoming year, plus dive into the mailbag, and it's our 2-year anniversary. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize. You guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And it's our 2-year anniversary. It's been 2 years since we started this channel and podcast, and the journey that it sent me down personally, the growth, the personal growth that's come of it, the relationships that's come of it, everything from starting a show just purely off my love of the Chicago Bulls. That's why I started this. Not for any other reason, not to have hopes of getting on any other bigger platform. It was just that I wanted to talk about my favorite team, and it all started here, right? And then from that, within the first 8 months of the show, I was blessed enough to be hired by Locked On to go and take over Locked On Bulls for Matt and Big Dave. Me and Pat have been rocking it out there, and Pat's become my brother. And then in the meantime, between that, we started Chicago Bears Central, me, C-Dub, Bobby, which then turned into the Chi-Town Sports Central network of shows and podcasts, where we now have Chicago Sky Central, Chicago White Sox and Cubs Central, Chicago Blackhawks Central, NBA Central, NFL Central's coming down the pipeline here sooner rather than later. That's going to be led by Steve-O and Bobby. But it's to start a network because I love the city. I love the teams in the city. It's where my dad grew up and was raised, and all these teams are teams that he's rooted for his whole life. And I was born into being fans of these teams. And so it's just been an amazing journey, and I could not have done any of this without you guys. I've always said this. I suck at promoting this show on social media. The reason why this show has become what it's become is because of you guys spreading the word, being active, being in here, showing up to the live streams, all that stuff. And I cannot stress enough, and I'm not going to get to mentioning names because I'm going to forget some if I do, and then I don't want anybody to feel slighted. But just know, if you've ever watched, retweeted, reposted, interacted, showed up to a live stream, you are as big a part of this as anybody else. And I want to thank you guys for the journey, the growth, everything, like being hired by Bleacher Report, everything that's come from starting this show has been all works of passion. And that's why I am able to go in. And this is the 800th official episode. But when you add in live streams, bonus episodes, emergency episodes, we are almost at 1,500 episodes in 2 years, and that could not come from anything other than loving to do this and loving interacting with you guys. So I wanted to start off this show by thanking you guys for being a part of this journey. Hopefully continue to being a part of this journey as we continue to grow and find just new heights every single time. We're now on the path, and our big goal is 20,000 subs on YouTube. So I thank you guys so much for this journey, man. And and I just wanted to open the show off on that. But let's get into the content for today. So we had an article on Lonzo Ball, and I kind of think tucked in that article was one quote, and actually what started it off. And the headline of the article is, Lakers believe Lonzo Ball's injuries were caused by his signature shoes. But the opening written line in this article is that the Chicago Bulls personnel believe Lonzo Ball may never play in the NBA again. And I think that, I've gone back and forth with a couple of guys in the comments and, things when it came down to Lonzo's injury. And the fact of the matter is, I'm glad that the Bulls have come to this realization, right? And you have to continue. Last season, they came in. I really do think they were hopeful that Lonzo Ball was going to return by midseason and the Bulls were going to be rocking and rolling again, right? And I think now they had to come to that realization after he had the cartilage replacement surgery that surgery, and I've said this when it happened, is not meant for athletes to get back to playing sports. That surgery is typically a surgery that older people get for quality of life so that they can be as close to pain-free and just going through the normal day-to-day life things, much less playing sports. Now, there have been some athletes that have gone back to playing. We've talked about those numbers out of, I think it was out of like 40 athletes, high-level athletes that had the surgery, 7 were able to return to playing sports, and none at a high level. The fact of the matter is that all signs are pointing to Lonzo Ball never playing again in the NBA. And if he is able to come back, he's not going to be Lonzo Ball like he was before. It's just written. That's what this surgery is. Now, if he can have a miraculous recovery and be the first to come back, all power to him. I'm not going to knock him if he's able to do that. But you have to play the averages at this point, and the averages tell us that Lonzo Ball is not going to be coming back to the Chicago Bulls, and that is why I'm glad that they did file for the disabled player exception. They were granted it. I do think that next year as well, when they can turn it into practical cap space, they're probably going to file for the career-ending injury exception. It kind of just makes sense with the progression that goes on with Lonzo Ball, and that is why in the question that I had from Shay yesterday on Sunday's mailbag about what is the biggest position of need for the Chicago Bulls, it's point guard. If you find the right point guard for this team, and keep in mind, even when I was bringing up Tyus Jones and players like that, it does not have to be a star-level point guard. It has to be a point guard that can do a couple of things: facilitate, get out in transition, play defense, and hit the three-pointer reliably well. And we have a stopgap in Javon Carter, but I think even the people that are the most optimistic about Javon Carter, like me, I think he's going to do wonders for the Chicago Bulls. I think we all realize, too, that long-term, right, for a starting level point guard next to Zach LaVine for years to come, you need somebody a little bit more than that, especially if DeMar starts declining, if Pat and Dalen and these guys never really take the type of leap that we want to see from them. You need that level point guard. And, we'll see if the Bulls can ultimately end up getting that, but you have to come to the realization. I'm glad to hear that there are people inside the Bulls organization that are understanding that Lonzo returning is very slim chances. Now, as far as the article talking about, the shoes, and the Lakers feel like it was the Big Baller brand shoes, and, there even been quotes from him in that. And so, regardless of what caused the initial injury, I'm not here to get into that. It doesn't matter. This is where we are now, right? This is what we have. And so, the Bulls have to find a way. And I do think where I initially came in, and much like last season, nobody's going to take Lonzo Ball's salary. There could be some teams that, by this trade deadline, considering it's expiring, things like that, that may look to do that, right? That may be, especially, teams trying to get under that second tax apron. You never know. But unfortunately, Lonzo Ball's career is likely over. And it sucks because Lonzo, when he was here, like I've always said, some of my best memories in the last 10 years of being a Bulls fan was that 35-game stretch or so that we had Lonzo Ball. Like, to see Lonzo doing the whole celebrating, doing the thing, like bouncing off one leg after he would make a big three and stuff like that, it was amazing to get out in transition. Hell, the opening of this show, so many of those plays came off Lonzo Ball passes or getting out in transition on the intro video to this podcast. But you have to eventually come to that realization that Lonzo Ball is probably done playing basketball, and the Bulls have to start pivoting and looking at what to do next. We'll see. Now, talking about injuries, I do want to talk about why the Bulls having an injury-free season, it's close to it. No team is going to have a completely injury-free season, right? But when you look at having this season start off with Zach LaVine being 100% healthy, right? We saw what Zach LaVine do. I think he missed the opening game last season. Many people counted the Bulls out. We ended up winning that game, right? But, the Bulls ultimately have to, with Zach LaVine, him coming into this season healthy, it's time for Zach LaVine to show what he can be, right? The questions are done, right? Last season, the season before last, I should say, that first half of that season when it was him, Lonzo, DeMar, I think people kind of overlooked that Zach LaVine was on pace to have one of his best seasons of his career, coming off what the season before that was his statistical best season of his career. But, of course, he got hobbled. He had the injury down the stretch of that season. He just wasn't good. The start of last season wasn't good for him either. He really started coming on after around December, January, and had a pretty solid finish to the season. But Zach LaVine, needs to stay as healthy as possible this season, and we need to really see Zach LaVine, how much have you stepped up your game, right? How much have you refined? How much can you now be a better player, right? And by that, I mean be more efficient in what you do. Limit the the late game turnovers, right? Show that you can be relied on a little bit more to not turn the ball over. Stop the dribbling off your foot thing, right? Come in, be that efficient scorer. Give the effort on defense. That's what the next realm of kind of evaluation is for Zach LaVine, in my opinion, right? When I was over on fantasy basketball, Locked On Fantasy Basketball with Josh Lloyd, he asked, like, what do you want to see from Zach LaVine? And that was my thing is like, what can you do now? You're fully healthy to start this season. How have you refined your game? We've seen the averages. We've seen that you be over 50, almost 50, 40, 90 guy. We've seen you flirt with that. Can you now do that? Do that consistently, right? Be an effective and efficient player. As much as we talk about what's going to happen with Zach, with DeMar and things like this, listen, the Bulls are going to re-sign DeMar DeRozan, and rightfully should, especially if Zach LaVine has not showed you that he's ready for ascension. You know why the Phoenix Suns were able to send away Chris Paul? Now, they did get a hell of a deal back for him, but Devin Booker, in the time that he got Chris Paul, refined and showed, hey, I'm ready now, right? I've learned what I've needed to learn. I am now ready. And we have questions on, has Zach LaVine learned that same thing playing with DeMar DeRozan? Now, some people could say, well, hell, DeMar has the ball so much in his hands. Zach hasn't really gotten to show that he can get to the free throw line. That's another part of Zach LaVine's game that I want to see refined. Get to the free throw line, young fella, right? Get those easy buckets. That's how you can be a more efficient scorer, right? And we have seen times where Zach LaVine has had games where he's gotten to the free throw line. But can you do that more consistently now, right? Being more confident, coming in healthy, right? How do you take players off the dribble, right? Have you developed some of that killer instinct, right? That is the next thing for Zach LaVine that we need to be looking at coming into the season. Fully healthy, all eyes are on Zach. But overall, the Bulls need to benefit from relative health as much as possible. Every season since this version of the team has come together, we've had major injuries. We've had Lonzo, we had Zach, we had Patrick Williams. That was all in one season, right? The first season of this team coming together. It was Zach last season, DeMar as well with his injury that he ended up playing with on most of last season, right? We need to get relative health with this team. And I think this team having a fully healthy season may surprise some people with how they're able to ascend. But I guess we'll see. It all remains to be seen. But again, Zach LaVine, that refinement of his game, that is what it is at this point. Refine, become more efficient, and let us be able to bet on a certain level of performance from you every single night. Let's hope that we get that from Zach this upcoming season. All right, let's get into the voicemail for today. We got two voicemails we're going to play. This one's for Michael Korn.
Hey, Haize, what's up? Michael Korn here. I hear that 2 years of Bulls coverage, man. It's awesome. Congrats, Mazel Tov. I'll be tuning you in to, this next season. Man, hopefully the Bulls play with some passion. If they can, maybe they can make some noise. But they gotta play with some passion. Hey, keep up the great work. Enjoy the show a great deal. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the anniversary wishes, Mike. I do appreciate that. Now, as far as the Bulls playing with passion, this is where we talk about the Bulls establishing and having an identity to start the season. I keep going back to that first clip that came out in Chicago Bulls training camp yesterday. Heck, I posted it here. I was so excited, hype. Billy Donovan telling the team, now we need to establish an identity. And we did not establish that identity until after a midseason buyout signing in Patrick Beverley. We did not get that, and now that's gone, right? This team needs to establish their identity, right? Their identity. Besides our play style being struggle, we need to define an identity for this team. And yes, playing with passion can get that. This team, at points, does seem like a team that enjoys each other. They're having fun. And I always go back to, again, that 30-plus game stretch with Lonzo Ball. That team was a passionate team that was having fun, right? We haven't had that since then. This team needs to play with passion, determination, and grit. That is what this team needs to unlock, and hopefully bringing in Javon Carter, Torrey Craig, both players that have edge, that are dogs, have that mentality, help bring that to the team overall, right? Javon Carter bringing that Chicago mindset to the Chicago Bulls team could be something that pays off huge for them. Let's hope that it does, and I hope that we see that because we deserve to see that as fans, and that's what is going for a team that doesn't have the generational talent that some of the other teams do. What do you need to do? You need to unlock a play style. You need to have an identity, a team identity, that's what the Baby Bull era had, right? That team had an identity, and then you eventually add Joe Noah and Derrick Rose to that team, and it takes them to new heights, right? but you need to have that identity. And hopefully the Chicago Bulls unlock that earlier this season than what they did last season, and it pays off for them in the win column. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Big T.
What's up, Haize? I left a few mailbags, but my phone kept cutting off. So I'm going to get right into it. But before I get on my rant, I do want to congratulate you on your 2-year anniversary. It's been a long time. I've watched every episode, and I am proud to say that you are the number one content creator. There's no one I go to before you. I'm proud of you. Have also inspired a lot of us to even create our own Bulls podcast and run with it. So I do want to thank you. Now, let's get into it. The first thing I want to address is these P. Will haters. P. Will has been a prototypical wing that you want on your roster. I know we all have our quarrel with his lack of aggression, but that's his only downfall. P. Will has been the number one on-ball defender. His only problem is his help defense. This is why you see Billy Donovan bench him. This is why you see his rebound numbers not where we want him to be. So we as Bull fans have to understand that P. Will is actually younger than some of these prospects coming out this year's draft. The man has been developing how we want him to develop. We don't need P. Will to turn into a Kawhi Leonard. We need P. Will to be what Andrew Wiggins to the Golden State Warriors championship run with the 19 points and being the best on-ball defender on the best player on the opposite team. So please get off P. Will. He is younger than a lot of the prospects that came out this year. He's still developing. I'm loving it. It was a great pick now that I'm looking at him being this defensive juggernaut. We just need him to get better on the help defense so he's in the proper spot for rebounds. Now, to get into the Billy Donovan. I know me and you had our little quarrel when I said that the Bulls' efficiencies was the three-point shootings, and you said it's not just the three-point shootings, it's the schemes. And Billy Donovan's defense and Arturas and Mark Eversley extending him, in my opinion, and what I think is Billy Donovan was given the short hand of the stick of a roster that had no versatility. So when you needed to go big, Billy couldn't. When you needed a small lineup, he had no three-point shooting. That man, in my opinion, I'm not saying that he did not make any bonehead mistakes, did the best of his ability. Now, my only quarrel with Billy is he left players out too long when it should have been a teachable moment and not a punishable moment. A lot of times he took P. Will out.
First of all, Big T, thank you for the anniversary wishes, man. And I like seeing so many of you guys like in the YouTube comments and stuff saying that, you feel like I'm the best Chicago Bulls content creator, man. I appreciate that. I've gotten to work with some of the greats, right? Pat the designer, Jamal over from Bull Central. Hell, Tony Gill's been on the episode trying to get golf on as well at some point in time, and KC Johnson. Like, just being able to now be in a space where I work with these people and like they know, like Tony Gill knew who the hell I was before I even reached out on him to be on the show and said that he watches the show, right? Like Stacey King has been I've had a 3-time NBA champion on this channel that said, hey, I watch your channel. Don't get a chance to watch it every day during the season, but I do watch your channel. That's crazy to me, right? And I appreciate that. Now, as far as your points in the voicemail, P. Will's help defense, listen, that is an amazing point, bro. And I think that really gets down to the aggression and kind of the focus that he wants to see. And when we saw, for example, Kobe White start ascending defensively, it was his help defense initially, right? I think that's a great point that you made. That would help with the putbacks, would help with the rebounds, would help with that as well. Like you said, I don't know if he can turn into Wiggins, because still I think people forget Wiggins is still a big-time scorer, even for that team. But I called it in one episode this offseason, get into being better at filling the gaps that's left by this starting lineup, right? By the core here. And I think that that's a avenue that Patrick Williams can absolutely carve out for himself and find ways to contribute hugely to this team. I love the potential of Patrick Williams. We all know what the potential Patrick Williams has to be on the Chicago Bulls team, but you have to bring it into realization. And so P. Will, whether it's the mindset, whether it's help defense, whether it's more rebounds, more blocks, whatever it is, right? That point of attack defense that P. Will has, he's great at that. We know that. He's one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. He just is, right? And so that is going to get you in games. Now, how do you build off on top of that? That's what P. Will needs to focus on, is getting the confidence in the other parts of his game within the flow of the offense, and then we'll worry about what comes down the road. Now, as far as Billy Donovan part of it, yeah, we did have our tisk on Billy Donovan, but it comes down to this, right? I've even said this. Every coach, if you're going to bet on a coach, they deserve to have the best version of the roster that you can build. And we all know that we've had personnel issues, size issues, shooting issues on this team. And that's not to say that Billy Donovan still doesn't have his mistakes, because he does. But the lack of size, lack of versatility, lack of three-point shooting are all things that we've seen with this team. And they've reared their ugly heads. Now, there are times where Billy Donovan doesn't go to players when he needs to go to them. Absolutely. And your voicemail got cut off there because there's a 3-minute limit. But ultimately, it comes down to just this. You need to find the balance between the coach and the roster. If you're betting on this coach, if you're not going to move from this coach, whatever coach you have in the front office deserves to have a balanced roster. That's any coach in the NBA. We can talk about my gripes or not with Billy Donovan all day long, but when it comes down to it, if you're going to coach a team, you deserve to have the best version of the roster that the front office can give you. And this front office came into the initial season lacking size. We lack shooting. Like, we had Lonzo Ball initially to help circumvent a lot of that three-point shooting. We didn't lack shooting. So hopefully now, with adding some size, adding some shooting to this team, we can see better from all aspects of it. Now, Billy Donovan also got to get better at calling adjustments, especially defensively. Can't tell you how many times we haven't adjusted to a simple pick and roll. But yes, we have had absolute flaws in this roster that hopefully now AK and Eversley have done enough this season to where, at least marginally, we're a little bit better in those areas. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, you can leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag episodes. The number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.